G'day guys, today we're going to be taking a look at the Lenovo Ideapad 330s-14IKB. This laptop originally came out in mid-2018 and features an Intel i3-8130U dual-core hyper-threaded CPU, 4GB of soldered DDR4 RAM with one empty SODIMM slot, which is great, a 16GB M.2 Intel Optane SSD, as well as a 1TB SATA mechanical hard drive. On the right-hand side of the laptop, we have our Kensington lock slot, a full-sized USB 3 port, and our full-size SD card reader. Over on the left-hand side, we have our charging port, a full-size HDMI port, another full-size USB 3 port, a USB Type-C port, and our microphone-headphone combo socket. There's no ports at the front or rear of this laptop. Turning it over, we can see there's no service panel, and instead we have to take the entire back plate off to get access to the inside. Thankfully, we just have to remove the 10 small screws, and the back does come off. There's no hidden screws under the feet, so don't bother prying them up. Once all the screws have been removed, you just need to get your fingernail between the back and the front of the case, and just gently pry it up. It should just unclip nice and easily, and the back just lifts off. Once inside, you can see the CMOS battery here. It just plugs into this small connector, so it's quite easy to replace. The laptop battery plugs into this larger connector, still not too hard to replace. And you can also see our 1TB mechanical SATA drive. To gain access to our RAM and M.2 slots, we do have to take off this black panel. It is just held in with 4 small screws. Once the 4 screws are removed, it does just lift off. At the top, you can see our combo Bluetooth and wireless card, our empty DDR4 SODIMM slot, as well as our M.2 slot, which does come populated with a 16GB Intel Optane SSD. The official spec sheet says you can only use a 4 or 8GB stick of RAM in this slot, bringing the total to 8 or 12GB, but I was able to put a 16GB stick in there, bringing the total to 20GB, and it worked fine with no issues. When putting the back cover back on, just keep in mind the 4 screws at the front do go in on a slight angle and not directly down. Just be very careful not to strip them. It's also worth mentioning, you can check the battery level while the unit is powered off just by pressing any key on the keyboard, and you do get the battery percentage briefly on screen before it turns itself back off. If you're not a fan of it, you can disable that in BIOS. We're just in the BIOS now, and to access it, when you power it on, just keep mashing the F2 key. So you can see we've only got our 4GB of soldered DDR4 RAM, and this is the i3-8130U variant. Going across to configuration, there's not too much we can change. 1-key battery is the setting you want to change if you don't want the battery level indicator to turn on while the system's powered off. If we go down to storage, you can see we are in RST mode, which does need to be on in order to use Intel Optane. If we go down to Intel RST, you can see we do have Optane enabled, and so the 16GB M.2 SSD has been rated with our 1TB mechanical drive. If you try to install Windows right now, setup won't detect any disks. I believe you should be able to sideload the Optane driver in the Windows installer, but I found just disabling it up here, going back to AHCI mode, which removes the RAID, and then both drives show up as their own devices during Windows setup. If you do decide to disable it in BIOS, just be aware you won't be able to re-rate it in BIOS, and instead we'll have to boot into Windows and run the Intel Optane application in order to re-rate it. If you're wanting to do a fresh install of Windows, I would recommend disabling it in BIOS, installing Windows to the mechanical drive, and then once Windows has finished installing and you've got all the drivers, just download and run the Optane application and click re-enable. There's not really much else to see in BIOS, so we'll boot into Windows 10. We're just in Windows 10 now, and I've opened Task Manager so you can see the specs, and I just wanted to quickly mention that the CPU has locked itself to 400 MHz twice now. I have no idea why it happened, but even running a stress test, it would only sit at 400 meg. The CPU temperature was nice and cold, around 30 degrees Celsius, so it wasn't thermal throttling. I ended up power cycling it a few times and it did just come good. Thankfully, it hasn't happened in the last few boots, so hopefully whatever issue it was, it has been fixed. Drivers weren't too big of an issue. I just downloaded and installed everything on the Lenovo website, and the only driver that was missing was the AHCI driver, which I ended up downloading from the Lenovo website for a different laptop. It did just work fine though. Also, as mentioned, if you wanted to use Intel Optane, you will have to download the application, which is not included in the driver on the Lenovo website, and I ended up having to get it from the Intel website. So here's the program here. Since I already have it enabled, it only lets me disable it, but when it's disabled, this just says enabled. Intel Optane was basically marketed as a very cheap high-capacity RAM alternative. That's why it says we have 20GB of RAM installed. That's not the case, it is just used as cache for our mechanical drive. In this day and age, you're going to get much better performance just installing a semi-decent M.2 SSD in this laptop instead. Before I re-enabled Intel Optane, I did run some benchmarks on it, so we'll take a look at that now. So I've disabled Optane in BIOS, and as you can see, both the 16GB Optane drive and the 1TB mechanical SATA drive both show up as their own devices again. And I've just installed Windows 10 to the Optane drive. As you can see, it's not happy about it. It is almost full. Looking in disk management, you can see both disks do show up. Running Crystal Disk Info, we can see our Optane drive is still 100% health. That's a good sign. It has written around 2.6 terabyte of data and read around 5.8 terabyte. So that is a fair bit, but it still claims to be good 100%. Our mechanical drive just says good as well. Running Crystal Disk Mark on the Optane drive, we can see it's not terrible by any means, but it certainly isn't faster than modern day high-end SSDs. It did do really well with random 4K reads and writes though. And just for completeness, here's the same test on the 1TB mechanical drive. As you can see, it's quite a bit slower than the Optane drive. I think we'll start off our tests with some 4K YouTube playback. You can see 4K high bitrate YouTube videos playback perfectly fine. Although our display is only 1366 by 768 and not a true 4K panel. If we take a look at Task Manager while 4K YouTube's playing, we can see it is handling it fairly well, and it is utilizing the GPU. I think next we'll try some local 4K media playback. We've just got Big Buck Bunny here, 4K high bitrate H.264. And as you can see, we can skip around without any issues. I think next we'll try a hand at some light gaming. We've just got some old school RuneScape using Runelite. Does run nice and smooth. We are in fixed classic. I think we'll try change it to modern resizable full screen. There we go. We'll move around a little bit. And it does work perfectly fine. There's no lag spikes, no stutters, nothing like that. We've got Minecraft Java Edition here. This is the latest version. And it was a little bit laggy when it was initially loading in and building the world. But it's not too bad now. You can see nice and smooth, no real lag spikes. I did end up turning these settings down. So let's go to Options, Video Settings. You can see I changed both render and simulation distance to 8 chunks, and graphics to fast, as well as clouds to fast. That did seem to make a huge difference. It's also worth noting the CPU fans did ramp up to max when it was generating the new world. But now we're in here, they have slowed right down. We've got something a little bit more modern here, Art of Rally. This is the GOG version. We've just gone to free roam, and it's not terrible. It is a little bit laggy. It's definitely running slower than it should be. I'd say if you really wanted to play it, it is possible, but it's not really that enjoyable, just with the slight lag. I have already gone to settings and turned everything right down. So this is the lowest resolution we could pick. And going down to quality, you can see I have already set it to low. Lastly, we've got the free Doom 2016 demo from Steam. There are mods available for Doom 2016 that turn the graphics settings even lower, letting you play it on really low-end hardware, but I haven't used any of them today. Instead, I just went into settings and turned everything down to their absolute lowest. If we go to advanced, you can see the overall quality is set to low. So we're actually in the game now, and it runs surprisingly well. You can see it's nice and smooth, there's very little lag, if any. Obviously the graphics settings are turned way down, but it is still definitely playable. This is using the Intel 620 UHD integrated graphics, there's no dedicated card or anything like that. And once again, we do only have 4GB of soldered DDR4 RAM. I would happily play the entire game on this little laptop. It's not bad at all. Overall, it's not a bad little laptop if you're able to get it for cheap. Even for today's standards, it is definitely capable. It is very upgradable. You could max out the RAM to 20GB with a 16GB stick, swap out the M.2 Intel Optane with a decent M.2 SSD, and you could keep the slow mechanical drive just for media, or swap that out with an SSD as well. It doesn't run too hot doing normal tasks like web browsing or light gaming, but obviously things like Doom did ramp the fans all the way up. It handled 4K high bitrate media, both on YouTube and locally offline, perfectly well, so this could just be used plugged into a TV to play media. The biggest issue with this is definitely the screen. It is only 1366 by 768, but the viewing angles are absolutely terrible. It is really hard trying to find the sweet spot when you're sitting at a table with it or in bed. Another big issue is battery life. Even when this was new, people were reporting only getting around 4 hours out of it with average use. And in my tests, installing everything and just testing performance of it, I did also end up with around 3 to 4 hours battery. It does charge fairly quickly though, which is great, but not through USB-C, it does just come with a standard barrel jack. I originally got this laptop for cheap, not to be used as a laptop, but because I thought it would make a neat little Proxmox server, mainly due to being able to max out the RAM to 20 gig, and the fact it has both an M.2 and a standard 2.5-inch SATA slot. I'll definitely be trying that out in a future video. I think that'll do it for today. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching.